Common sense. Common sense. People say, oh yeah, common sense. What is common sense? Commune comes from Latin, community, commune, common. So is it a sense of community? Because it can't be a common sense. You know, I have sense, I can sense the air, sense of taste and smell. You can, but we can't. We have no common smell. Smell. Common law, you know. Community law. Law. Where does law come from? The word law comes from Scandinavia, probably, in Danelaw, spelt R-E. Eventually Latin came with the Norman conquest and brought the word leg, legal, and regal, or regal, or regis, or regis, registration. Just like left and right, legal and regal, leg and reg, lex and rex. Lex is the written word, or the word, but in a language that's written anyway, such as Latin, then you would expect leg, or lex, to be the written word. That's why legal and legislation and is on paper. See it as the left side, but right, regal is right. Dexter and sinister, port and starboard, but not right and wrong, right and left. There's not a great deal of difference between lawful and legal, really, except that law can be spoken. And so then when we ask, where do laws come from? Why do laws apply? You know, what about the law of nature? What about the law of gravity? Well, the law of gravity is still a common law, in a way that people see something fall, agree on a definition for that effect, that's an axiom which can be proved and recognised, understood by others, and accepted as an agreeable law. But there can be two laws of gravity. And so it's the agreement of that law that makes it a law. Otherwise you wouldn't call it the laws of gravity, you would just call it gravity. The actual definition of gravity in its perfection, as a man can perfectly define anything, becomes law. And if any other man comes along and breaks that law, in that he improves that law and says, I have a better definition for gravity, so things are defined, things are written. We believe things that are written because they're written, and they must have some sort of authority, especially if they've been printed and distributed. It gives a word authority. So we see these printed words, and I get my facts from one book and you get your facts from another book. And I say, I know the truth because I read the truth. And you say, I know the truth because I read the truth. And I read the truth and you read the truth. My truth's redder than your truth. Something that's red can't be redder. So law itself can be seen in three parts. We have case law, casual law, laws like statutes, like conditions, if-then statements. If you walk this way, then you're breaking that law. It doesn't mean to say it's a crime or anything, but obviously if it's an if-then statement, if you drive faster than the speed limit, you are driving faster than the speed limit. It's a self-evidential case. It's positive law. And then we have absolute law, which is crime. If you hurt somebody, then you should repay, or if you kill somebody or whatever, it's wrong. That's an absolute law. But also an absolute law can be from a lord or from a ruler if it's imposed in such a way, if you've agreed and stuff. Private law can be seen as absolute law, because if you make a contract to somebody, then you are obliged to fulfill that contract, or at least accept the remedy that's within every contract. Every contract must have a remedy. And so then the third type of law, the other two being casual law and absolute law, is divine law, unspoken law. So if it's not unspoken, unwritten law. It's spoken, or it comes not from the written word. Any writings describing divine law are only there to create a guideline, a framework. In the same way that Buddhist Zen parables are there not to give you the answer, but to make you think, or to lead you in a direction, or to give you something that you can apply to life. And in every culture there's been morals and riddles and songs and things to guide us through life. Wisdoms in all different areas. And these are maybe divine laws. These come from our ancestors. These come from fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers all the way back. Divine law, unwritten, just passed on, demonstrated, expressed, spoken, enacted. I'd say, divine law is more than anything just simply enacted. Just like any law. What makes a law applicable is the enactment clause. See the preamble of your constitution. So yes, common sense, common law, divine law, natural divine law. Is natural law just the law of the jungle, not the law of language? So what are you speaking for? Natural divine law, a balance between that inspiration that we have as a human and that observation of the balance of nature, and that in harmony. It's about harmony. If it doesn't sound right, if it doesn't harmonize with itself, then it's a flaw. It's flawed. Alright then, see you later, thanks for watching, cheerio.